Welcome to the Vortex Nation podcast, brought to you by lovers of hunting, shooting, public lands, the Second Amendment, and good food. All right, what's up, everybody? We are on the road, and when we go on the road, we get the chance to meet some pretty awesome people and have them as guests on our podcast, so that's pretty exciting here. Now, right now, Jimmy is here talking to you. We don't have Mark. The co-host is not here.
I'll play that role today.
Can you play Mark?
I'll be Mark.
Yeah, so you got to
hey,
be kind of just a little bit anxious all the time and not sleeping very much.
Pass the hand sanitizer if you don't mind.
Okay, perfect. Now I feel
I'm
like
gonna build an AR someday. I promise.
Yeah, now I feel comfortable. Oh shoot, yeah, that's right. Reuben is on here now, and he doesn't get the chance to give Mark crap for not having an AR yet. For the record, people, at the time of this recording, it is January 24th. Mark still does not have an AR.
And we're at SHOT Show. It's like the perfect place where he could wrangle one.
Basically, just
He could
walking around.
He could order it and have it sent to the office, to our FFL, and get it. And like,
besides a firing pin, there's basically enough parts lying on the floor here underneath like tablecloths and things to build an AR.
yeah.
Yeah, you could throw a dime and hit one.
So the voice you just heard then is our special guest for this podcast. It is Adam Weber of Weber Tactical.
Hey guys, how are you?
And Adam, we want to talk a little bit about your story because it's a pretty interesting one. Reuben, in fact, Rube, if only we were recording when you first said this, it was a great segue into it, but we just recently did, as for 2019, if you get our catalog, which probably at the time this is released, you'll have the chance to get our catalog. I think you contact us and you can get one.
Yep,
or it's
sure.
online. We have some pretty sweet, what we call trailblazer stories. And basically these are just people who essentially, they just had a dream, wanted to do something, went out and just did it, and they really cut a new path.
Yeah,
And
they're just passionate, driven people that
exactly
have a goal they want to achieve or something they want to work towards, and they just do it.
Exactly. And so, Adam, I'll spare doing any intros for you and let you introduce yourself and tell a little bit of your story for the listeners out there who maybe aren't familiar. But yeah, go for it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you guys. Man, I appreciate everything Vortex does just across the world. You know, the shooting sports, military law enforcement. You know, I started my law enforcement career about 10 years ago and worked full-time for a sheriff's department, then went into in rural America, and then went into, moved over towards the St. Louis area. Some people have heard of us. We kind of started a national movement there a little bit, but been an epicenter of some things. And but St. Louis is a strong, great community, and spent 4 years there at a municipal department as a firearms instructor, and just working the road and doing that type of thing. Weber Tactical started actually. It's kind of a funny story. So go all the way back to 2010. I bought a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380 as a backup gun. I'm not a fan of revolvers. I just never shoot them well.
Oh, come
I
on.
know.
Yeah.
Everybody, I know.
I
Here
really
we go.
love my 640 Pro. Never leaves me.
Bro, my Smith & Wesson M&P 357, bro. Bro, things
right,
never
well,
done me
we're
wrong.
Thanks, Adam.
I know, right? It's been great. There it was. Bombed this one the first round. No. So I bought that 380, and I couldn't find a holster that wouldn't activate the laser. Well, there's nothing worse than walking around with the laser, pointing out of your shorts.
Oh,
when,
yeah,
you're
just
running around. So
like you got a little laser on a leash.
Yeah. So I bought I actually
walking through the mall and
right.
the lasers just seeing strike.
What was really annoying was the cats that tried to attack your leg. But yeah. So
That was my best cat noise. I don't know if it was any
horrific,
good or not.
man.
I thought it was real.
I think it was being attacked by something. Anyway, so
So I bought a kydex holster, and from some guy, it wasn't even, I don't think, an actual company. It was just somebody said, hey, try a kydex holster, and I bought one. So going back, 2010 was kind of the epicenter of really kydex in the garage bender world, right? So,
yeah.
Small people being able to actually buy small lots of kydex and the materials and stuff.
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but the year 2010 is, for those of you, most of the people listening in this are certainly going to be in the firearms industry, but 2008, we all know that was an election year, and we all know what happened, and that created just like a mass pandemonium in the market, right? All of a sudden, it was like it was like you couldn't find an AR to save your life. You couldn't find 22 LR to save your life or anything really aside from 300 Wisdom, which Mark was really happy about.
Yeah.
And
Super
it was
popular
just
cartridge.
completely crazy. And then that maintained itself pretty much through 2010.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, like you said, you had a lot of people kind of starting, getting into the industry. They saw a lot of needs, maybe needs that seemed like smaller demand to companies at first, but then all of a sudden, once you had this huge influx of people, a lot of people who are in the middle, right? So people who maybe, oh, yeah, I think firearms are super cool. I don't exactly have one. But now all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to choose a side. You either like firearms and you're going to get one or you're against us. And so they started getting firearms, and then you see people with needs like, oh, there's not a holster to get this gun I just got. Anyway, I don't mean to interrupt, like I said, but that's a little context for people out there.
So I bought this kydex holster, and bless this guy's heart, he did a really good job, I think, trying. But so an M&P 380 is like 1.5 inches wide and like 3 inches long, right? So from trigger guard to top of the sight. And the holster I got was about 8 inches wide, and it had, homemade belt loops, and it was this massive holster. And I was like, there's no way that this is going to conceal anything. It did work, though, in that it didn't activate the laser. So I was like, well, this is really cool. But I think I can do it better. Mm-hmm. So I literally went out to my garage. I started Googling. I started, what is this? I ordered some kydex. The first kydex holster I ever made, I read online that you could use foam, and I went and bought boat seats, the foam boat seats. And
Really?
I tried to press a holster out of foam boat seats, right? Well, the problem is that wasn't high temp foam. So when I pressed it, the kydex and the foam adhered to the kydex, and it was this foamy mess when I tried to take it apart, right? So that didn't work.
We're almost going to have to, when you're done with this story, too, we're going to have to go through the process of what even's going on.
Right.
But
so,
yeah, keep going.
And that didn't work, so I found out that you had to have high temp foam, so high density, high temp foam. So I ordered some of that. I went and bought, you had to be able to sand, so I bought a belt sander from the salvage hardware store and flipped it upside down and put it on a piece of plywood with U-bolts, and so I could have a belt sander, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
I was trying to just do this, this never started as anything that it was going to be today, right? Like I never sat down and said, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to be a kydex holster maker. That wasn't my plan. I was just trying to fill a need that I had personally. So anyway, we started playing, and we started getting some things to work. I was using a hot plate from Walmart, a $19 hot plate. So you would lay the kydex on and you'd flip it back and forth. You couldn't get one side too shiny. If you got it too hot, it would shine up. So, literally this is like just in your basement garage, just goofing off.
Did you ever take a break and throw pancakes on it?
Pancakes occasionally. The problem... So
I don't know, man. Kydex, plastics, getting hot, and pancakes.
Here's the thing. I tried that. It wasn't very smart because the pancakes tasted like burnt kydex.
Like carcinogens.
So, yeah, it wasn't good. I didn't eat them. I took one bite and was no.
See,
no. But, so...
You're such a cynic now that you have kids, Reuben.
sorry.
So, long and short of it, I started messing around, and I made some successful holsters that worked, that were actually concealable. This was in the day when you couldn't buy pre-made injected belt loops, that wasn't an option. So you made your own belt loops. You bought 125 and you bent them and built little jigs. And it's very time consuming. So one thing led to another. The sheriff's department, some of my buddies started seeing this and they're like, hey, can you make this for this? And can you do this? And, that sort of thing. So, it just kind of happened. We just started playing around.
So what kind of time frame was it between when you made one and you started wearing your own holster that you made until people started asking you hey, can you do that for me?
Probably about 2 months.
Wow.
Probably
That's
about
quick.
2 months. Yeah. It was one of those things that, and so when I get tied into a project, I can't
Little
sleep.
did you know you were going to get pulled into this.
Right. And I was just day and night trying to perfect this, how I wanted it. And I was looking at other holsters and going, okay, well, that's how they're trying to figure out, I'm not injection molding this, so how do I get this to work this way? And, all that sort of stuff. And so we started goofing off. I started making stuff for the guys at the office, and then I was like, hey, at that point it was like, hey, can you just buy the kydex and have it shipped to me and I'll make it for you. I just want to kind of play with it. And so we did that. And, there was some evolution. I built my first kydex press at that point. So it's 2 pieces of 3/4-inch plywood and 2 2x4s and,
Okay.
and 2 door hinges is how that started. I still have that press. We don't use it, but I still have it. I've saved it.
Oh, yeah.
Because on top of it, I have all the dimensions for the, like I used to write in Sharpie, like Glock 34, Glock 22, like the sizing, so I would know when I go to press a holster, like what I had to cut. So, yeah, so that started, and we started just kind of goofing off. In the process of all that, I was making a few holsters every week. It was relaxing to me. I work nights, so I get off in the morning. And, maybe I had a bad day or whatever, or long shift or, dealing with law enforcement type stuff. And making holsters was just like kind of my oasis, and I'd lock myself down there and play around. So in about mid 2012, I worked midnights, as I said. And there was one place in the county that was open. It was Denny's in Kingdom City, Missouri. And so 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 to 4 o'clock, we all would meet up and we'd go to dinner. And so there was this truck driver, and his name is Billy Douglas. And Billy is just a truck driver, right? So he would always sit in the back corner, and he'd be on his computer. And the more he would come, like, he'd always try to sit closer to us. So finally one day, he's like 5 tables away, and I'm like, hey, man, why don't you just pull up a seat? Like, we know you want to sit with us. You seem like a nice guy. Just come have lunch with us. He's like, oh, that's so cool. So it became a thing, right? So Billy
Douglas sounds like he's probably like a guitar playing fool.
I've never
Just
seen Billy when he have a cigar.
Like when I think of that, I'm like, yeah.
Billy Douglas shreds the
Just
guitar.
a mean acoustic guitar player.
So Billy's like, hey guys, I run this IDPA match in Columbia, Missouri. And he's like, you guys need to come out and shoot. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, no.
Did you not shot competition?
I had never shot
Okay.
No, never shot any kind of competition. My dad, growing up, was he lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, and he was on the NRA team there. They shot, back when it was cool for kids in school to be part of a shooting team.
Oh yeah.
So he shot NRA back then. And I had been shooting since I was like 5. Like he had taught me how to shoot, and started hunting when I was like 11. And
shooting was an encouraged way to keep kids off the street.
But fun fact, high school trap and skeet in Minnesota is now the biggest high school sport.
Dude,
in the
that
state.
is so awesome.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, there's, I think, I want to say in Minnesota, there's like 14,000 kids in it. And in Wisconsin, there's like 7.
These always go on rabbit trails, these podcasts.
Yeah,
but
dude,
I mean,
don't worry about it.
But dude, get a kid shooting in a controlled setting, and all of a sudden, all the Call of Duty, like, big hearts in their eyes and just kind of like, oh, man, this is crazy. I'm just going to, like, get a big gun and shoot all over the... it's just like that goes away. And you're like, oh, okay, this is a tool. I understand how to use it responsibly. It takes away all the, like, If you never had that before, then you get a gun, you do stupid stuff. Anyway.
And if you don't believe me, check it out.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, so I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. My daughter's 11, my son's 6. And they have an M&P 22 AR and I bought it because it was so small. People are like, oh, you bought your kid an AR. Like, no, it was the smallest thing because my daughter is very petite, and it's the only thing that remotely fit her that I could find next to the Cricket. And I didn't want to load the shell every time. I'm sorry, not to bag on the Cricket, but I wanted to be able to bang. But that is like one of our favorite pastimes is to go shoot. And my kids, they're not scared of guns. They respect guns. They've been taught the safety rules. The rule we have in our family is before we get out the gun on the range, they both have to independently recite the safety rules, and from memory, they can't read them. I make them turn away from the little sign on the wall, you know.
Yeah.
And that's our rule. And they always, it's kind of become a fun game of who can do it, fastest, But sidetracked. So anyway, Billy Douglas. Back to Billy Douglas and Denny's.
The guitar shredder.
Just a
chain smoking Billy
fiend.
Douglas, right? So he's like, yeah, seriously.
What a name.
Yeah. So he's like, man, you got to come shoot a match. Like, you can use your duty gear. And he's like, you're supposed to have a concealment garment, but he's like, we just really want to get you guys out to see our range. And so if you know anything about Columbia, Missouri, Bianchi Cup is at Chapman, and that's where this IDPA match is,
Sure.
right? So he started telling me about this guy named Jerry Michalik, and coming over to see him shoot. And honestly, I'd seen Jerry's videos, but at that point, like, he was just a guy that shot like insanely fast. I didn't know any of this.
Does he still do any of that? Or
Jerry Misulik.
Yes, he is the godfather that's still kicking tail
That
on
he
a
is.
regular
Nice.
basis.
That he is.
But so long story short, Billy, after about a month of nagging me at no end, he was like, I'll even give you the ammo. Just, 'cause you got to realize, like, at that time, I was a deputy making $28,000 a year and trying to feed a family off that. And, we didn't make, every deputy worked at least 2 jobs. You had something else. I mean, you weren't in that business because you were getting rich. You were in it for,
You weren't in it to become the Great Gatsby.
No, not at all. So I show up to this IDPA match, and so Billy squads me up with him and some other guys, and we go shoot this IDPA match, and, man, I had a lot of fun. Like, it was like training, and, now, there's a lot of rules and stuff, and I screwed up a lot of stuff, this, like, dropping mags and all this weird stuff that I didn't learn, I didn't know. But those guys, the coolest thing about it was none of those guys were jerks about it. They were like, hey, so I got to give you a penalty, but this is what you did, and we know this is your first match. And so in the midst of all that, I started, like, making competition holsters for IDPA. Like, I wanted to shoot IDPA. So my duty holster was, like, double retention. I didn't want that. That was slow. So I started looking at this, and we started kind of messing around. So 2012, the end of 2012, 2013, I met a guy named Dylan Easley and Mark McSorley. I sponsored the Missouri 3-gun match. I believe it was like the first match that they had ever hosted.
I've heard of Mark.
Yeah.
But the other
guy. Dylan guy? Yeah, I don't know.
Dylan Weasley?
Weasley, I think, yes. Yes, something like that. I don't know. He's one of those internet fads. That's what Dylan is. He's all about the internet, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah. Keyboard Commando, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so we sponsored this match, and I gave some certificates away. It was just kind of like, it sounded like a cool cause, and I really didn't understand, like, match sponsor. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, hey, you guys are having, yeah, I'll give you some gift certificates. I'll make some stuff,
Sure.
No problems.
Had you formed a company yet, or is this still just doing it? Just
It was
for fun?
So the original name in Callaway County, my nickname was Bulldog. That's what they called me on the street and all the deputies. And so
On the streets.
Yeah, on the hard streets.
Bulldog needs his gat back.
Yeah, so it had something to do with short arms, and I used to power lift back then. So
Okay.
The theory was if I could get a hold of you, you weren't going anywhere. So
Sweet.
I'd still believe it to this day.
Yeah. So anyway, we started as this, like, I just started calling it, like, Bulldog holsters, like that. That's what people called me. So, but there was no company. I was just like, hey, cool. Buy the. I wasn't even making money off of this stuff. I was just like, hey, just what's the cost? Yeah, I'll do that for you. It was kind of my oasis, right? So.
Yeah.
And then we started, so we sponsored that. So this Dylan guy and this Mark guy, they invite me to this Missouri 3-gun match. So I showed up. I think I borrowed a shotgun. I had, like, a duty rifle. So full disclosure, I had never shot an AR with a red dot past 100 yards. There was never a quality. So the police ranges where we shot didn't have more than 100 yards. Like, it wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So I had the first stage. It was freezing cold. It's snowing. The first stage, you had to run down, and you had to shoot these targets that were like 400 or 500 yards. And I emptied mag after mag, and I was, like, so frustrated. I had no idea what dope was. I had no idea what, like, dope to me was the stuff I arrested people for, Yeah. These guys are, they're all saying,
You got your dope, bro.
They're like, hey, what's your dope? And I'm like, whoa.
Hey,
What is this?
Whoa, on the ground. We got a problem here. We got a
It's just dropping people at matches.
I'm calling the canine. We're gonna get this, man. We need to get a canine out here.
People come up to him. Hey, Adam, we wanted to talk to you about this.
funny story,
So,
Adam.
I know you would never do this, but some people said you tackled like 5 different competitors.
Look, and we know why they call you the Bulldog.
Oh my goodness, the stories that could be told. But so in this match, on the first stage, I don't know, I still to this day don't know who it was, but this guy, you had to run down through some, like, little obstacle thing, and he hit a log when he went to sit down. He hit a log, and he snapped his holster in half.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, wow, that's bad. And then they sent him home. It was a DQ. Like, I didn't know, like, I thought, it was like, like you get a penalty, right? Like, again,
Yeah.
I have no exposure to this world whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow, this is like, he paid like $300 to be here. He's got a hotel. His holster broke and he had to go home. Well, that sucks.
Totally.
So I was like, I think I can make something that wouldn't break. So we started playing around with that, making kydex different thicknesses. In the midst of all that, I met Corinne Mosier at a Rob Vogel class in Kansas City. And she was just getting started in the shooting world. That was back in, before she was super famous. And so there's a buddy of mine named Scott Francis, and I was talking to Scott, and I was like, I'm looking for some people that know a lot about shooting and that are passionate, that will tell me what's wrong with stuff I make. Like, I don't want to know what's right with it. Like, I want to know why it's failing so that it can be fixed. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, Corinne is a really good shooter. Her husband's a police officer. These would be the kind of people that would be honest with you about stuff. So I approached her and I said, hey, can I make you some gear? And I'd like for you to test it, and people say that you break stuff a lot. So, like, apparently you shoot a lot and you're really, like, into training. So will you tell me what happens? So she's like, yeah. So I made her some gear, and she called me in, like, 2 months, and she'd broken a holster. It didn't break all the way. So it was a single-layered kydex. It was a light-colored kydex, and it had actually formed a stress fracture. And so I got to looking at it, and I was like, well, that kind of sucks. I actually called Kydex and talked to the technical guys over there, and they were like, well, yeah, some of the lighter colors, there may be a hardener issue in it. They may, be just a little difference. And I was like, okay, so let's wrap two layers around it. So wrap 2 layers around it, and it formed up, and it worked. And it was like super rigid. And I was like, here, go break this one. So after about 6 months, she's like, I can't break this. This is awesome. So then that was kind of where we started into this whole thing. So 2013, we were doing this. We were making, a few CCW, like the traditional, when you think of the old pancake style traditional holsters, I was, again, doing this. At this point, I was charged, and I was trying to make a little bit for my time.
You're still a cop.
Yeah, still a full-time cop.
Yeah.
So the biggest part was in November 12th of 2012, I got injured in a training accident. Blew my right shoulder out, had surgery. I was out for, I believe it was 7 months total. So in that time, I had a lot of time. I started a little Facebook page called Bulldog Holsters, and I had moved to St. Louis at that point, but I was still a deputy. And so I just had a lot of free time and just started really working on, trying to make this an indestructible competition holster. Again, with the idea that it really sucks if you have to go home, right? Like, you pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
Had you yet at this time thought about doing stuff for law enforcement officers too, or were you mostly focused on making products for the competition world?
we were still doing like CCW holsters.
Sure.
We were doing. At that point, I had a lot of the guys that were on the task force, which is what they call like the narcotics guys, that were asking us to make like deep concealment stuff. They were asking for things specifically for, situations that they were in. One guy, he worked mainly surveillance, and he wanted a deal that would mount into his truck. He wanted this, he wanted that. So we were still doing a lot of that, and it was kind of easy. At that point, the quality wasn't, anything to today's standards. The evolution of the kydex world has just been amazing in the last 8 years. The availability of parts, companies like Index Fasteners, they came on board, and they, I remember when Danny, going back to Index, you used to have to call Danny. He was the sales guy over there. They didn't have a website. So to sell this stuff, and you'd be like, hey, Danny, I need this, or, and it was over the phone, and he'd write up an order and send it to you. It was crazy. But so we were still doing that. We were making a lot of gear for cops that were like off-duty stuff and playing around with that. And, back then you couldn't even hardly buy molds. So there was a company that called Multi-Molds that kind of came into evolution around during that time. I don't know the exact year they started, but they were actually selling molds that you didn't have to buy the actual gun. So up to that point, it was if you wanted a holster, you had to bring me the gun. Like, you showed up and, there was a six-pack of beer in the fridge, and, we would make holsters, and you could hang out and, do that kind of thing, if I didn't have the gun.
Could have had somebody stippling grips while they waited.
I know, right?
That would have been a great opportunity. Should have partnered up back in the day.
I know.
Everybody wants that herringbone pattern.
Right?
I got it. I got the herringbone.
It does. phenomenal.
Thanks, Rube.
Check it out.
Thanks, Rube. But yeah,
I tried stippling it. I was horrible at it.
fun. What would you call my stippling company if I made it? I don't know if I could beat Bulldog.
Oh, Bulldog's pretty cool.
Nobody calls me a cool name like Bulldog.
I don't know, like Jimbo Customs or something.
There you have it.
Stipple my gripple.
Slick Jimmy's Stippling Service.
There you go.
He's not Slick Jim, though.
Wait, but it's the whole point is that if it is slick out, that you don't.
Right.
You want
see?
anti-slick,
Yeah.
unslick,
We'll think
rough
about that.
Jimmys.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I join Mark for saying inappropriate things on the podcast.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm blonde.
Okay.
owned it.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
So, 2014, we formed, incorporated as Weber Tactical. I realized that there is absolutely no branding anything Bulldog. Every high school team, every county in the world has a Bulldog something, right?
Yep.
I started learning about this thing called branding. We had a couple gun stores approach us and say, hey, we like to carry your stuff in our stores. And I was like, oh, who do we make the checkout to? Oh, well, we probably should incorporate and, become legitimate and pay Uncle Sam and, all that sort of stuff and, actually charge money and figure out what it actually cost us. And so we did that and started, retailing in a few places. And then, the evolution of watching things break on the range. And then I would go up to people and, I would ask to see their stuff and say, hey, why do you like this? Why does this work? Why doesn't this work?
Sure.
And I'd look at stuff that broke. And so in the midst of all of this, the competitive shooting family, people became like my friends.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the camaraderie that I had in the police department and the sheriff's department. We were buddies and my buddies were shooting guns and we were having a good time. And it really bothered me if A, one of my buddies had gotten hurt, or B, they spent a lot of money and had to go home. I didn't want to see that happen. So
When that one guy fell at Missouri 3 Gun, was that your holster you made?
no.
Okay.
No.
Bet you're glad about that.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God. Yeah, I'm sure it's happened out there. I'm sure that something has broken. I'm not necessarily aware of any of them, but
Sure.
I'm sure it's out there. But yeah, it would have really sucked. So we started doing that, and then things just kind of exploded. And then we moved more towards a business. I started moving more towards a business and more, working towards that. We started really focusing on 3-gun. And, I started hanging out with three gunners in the 3-gun community. It's the funnest sport to me in the shooting sports that I've done. I like all of them, but I've not tried PRS. I really want to try that. But 3-gun to me is just cool,
You should make a PRS rifle holster out of kydex.
I don't know
It's
about
just like
that.
a big giant kydex backpack.
Yeah.
Everything weighs like 40 pounds.
That'd be really weird.
That'd be terrible.
It'd be weird.
Have you ever thought about, making stuff like that?
I've played with a couple things.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've got a couple things that we're playing with that.
So what the heck? What is kydex then?
Kydex is it's a plastic. It's an extruded plastic. So Kydex got its fame. If you've ever flown in an airplane, the interior of the airplanes are generally made out of either Voltron or Kydex. That plastic.
Oh, yeah.
So public transportation is
Did you
where
say Voltron?
Voltron.
I was going to say Voltron and Kydex. One of those names sounds really cool, and one of them sounds kind of
Right.
a little lame.
Voltron
Yeah.
is still kind of neat.
Voltron is
Yeah,
cool.
I know nothing about it.
So
Me either.
It would be cooler if it was Voltron.
right. Isn't
Yeah,
there a
but
company
it's
called
Volt- it's-
Voltron?
Maybe.
Whatever, Jimmy.
But it's Voltron.
Whatever. Just let me have it, okay?
You guys got this thing going. I don't know. Mark, maybe did he balance? I don't know. Are you being a good Mark today?
Yeah, he actually is.
Okay,
Usually Mark and
all
I
right.
give each other a lot of crap.
Okay. All right.
Although Mark's crap that we give each Mark gives me crap with looks, so a lot of times now that we're on YouTube, people can probably pick up on it. But prior to being on YouTube, people wouldn't be able to pick up on some of the stuff Mark shoots over my way with his eyes.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, so kydex, it's an extruded plastic. They use it in airplanes, aircraft grade plastic.
Public transportation. That's where Kydex, I believe it is originally formed in Japan. It's durable, formable, and very resistant to, very easily cleaned. So very resistant to,
to like
damage.
people vomiting on the
Antimicrobial.
plane.
Right, yeah. Yeah, biohazard, it cleans up pretty nice.
Nice.
Stuff
Naturally
like
a
that.
good fit to make holsters out of.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of
exactly.
biohazards in people's waistbands.
Yeah. We leave all of the bottoms of our holsters open to so that the blood of our enemies can run through them.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
you guys put bayonets on your pistols too?
No.
So is it, you call it Weber Tactical?
Yes.
It's a pretty cool name.
That is a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
Why did you call it Weber Tactical? Because it doesn't really insinuate that it's like competition-based products.
So that's an interesting subject.
That is a great question.
It's a great question. So if you go back to 2014, everything and its brother was revolved around the tactical world. That was the height of tactical. You start looking at technology, you start looking at all that. That was like the evolution of a lot of really big stuff. So, we'd been in Iraq for 10 years. You had a cycle of operators that were coming out. You had this world of Instructor Zero. These types of people were really, YouTube was becoming really popular, that sort of a thing. And so Weber Tactical, we were still making CCW holsters. We were still doing that kind of a thing. And it was just kind of an all-encompassing thing. Competition, just kind of getting into the competition world was something that I got into because it became my passion. Law enforcement was my passion. Shooting was my passion. And I saw a big hole in the competition world, but we were at that point, we were probably more into the CCW world trying to.
One thing I found interesting that you didn't say directly, but you used like the competition world to help deliver or to develop a lot of products and test them when they would break. Did you do the same thing on the law enforcement side?
I did, and back then we would actually take, even our law enforcement CCW stuff, and we would go through. I would go help set up a match, or go the day after a match if it hadn't been torn down, and we would try to run the tack gear through to see how it would perform. Again, if you've ever been in law enforcement or the military, you understand the camaraderie that goes with it. My partner and I still to this day are best friends. I can call Curtis Hall at any point in time. If I needed something at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd call that dude and he'd be there. And so when you have that camaraderie and that brothership, you don't want to see anything bad happen to those people. Like, they protect you, you protect them. And so it really became my passion to help do that. If I could put a product that would save Curtis's life or Joe's life or, these different people, that was where my passion was. And it translated into the competition world too, because there have been people that have been killed in competitive shooting. There have been accidents. And, I don't want to see anybody go home and have a bad weekend and have the ultimate bad weekend.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like a passion forward thing for me. Like by the shooters, for the shooters, and the competitive shooting just evolved and it became my passion as well. And it was where my friends were at. Listen, I tell everybody, I don't care if you're a sponsored shooter. I don't care, lots of companies I know, you guys have some great sponsored shooters. I have sponsored shooters. It's not about the competition as much for me personally. I want to go to a match and have fun with my friends. Like, I want to go to a match and I want to hang out with Reuben and I want to shoot guns and have fun and joke and have a good time. Like, it's serious. I get it. Like, there's money on the line for all that. But for me personally, when I spend the money, I look at it as an investment in spending time with my friends. Like, I don't have guys' nights out. Like, my guys' nights out are going to the range with my buddies. And that's to me, that's where, that's that camaraderie and that friendship there, in that respect.
What's the, this is going to change gears on you a little bit. What's the biggest difference between like a competitive holster and then what you would sell to a guy in law enforcement or something like that?
So, if we're going to sell a law enforcement holster...
You just gave me a look, Rube, like that was a stupid question.
It was a great question. I was trying to think if I can answer it, but I can't.
Well, in that case, proceed.
So, law enforcement holsters they pretty much revolve around, if you're talking about like a duty gear, it pretty much revolves around retention and the ability to be able to fight and have the gun not be accessed by the criminal. Okay. So, if I'm rolling around in the dirt with somebody and we're throwing fists, and I don't have a reason, I don't have justifiable cause to use deadly force, I need to make sure that my gun doesn't, A, fall out. I need to make sure that, B, that the bad guy can't get the gun and use it against me, right? So that's in a law enforcement. Competition, I need to make sure that it's fast, reliable, positioned properly, so they're vastly different. You know,
Oh, okay.
So on a law enforcement aspect, yeah, I want to be able to get to it fast, but I want to have certain levels of protection. They're more built on the idea of, you know, levels of retention. You have level 1, 2, and 3.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So a level 1 holster, and the internet may disagree, but as I was trained,
Shut up, internet.
right? Oh, great! Now we're gonna go viral.
Always correcting me.
So a level 1 is basically friction. So something that keeps the gun in. A true level 1 holster would be a holster that you could turn it over and the gun would not fall out, right? So like
You
it's
said
got
that's level 3?
level 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, level 1. Okay.
Level 1. Level 2 is some sort of retention device that allows it to not be grabbed and pulled out without activation.
Like one of those straps that goes
Yes.
over the rear thing.
Goes over the...
Oh, God. That was bad.
The internet's going to crucify you over that, bro.
Yep,
I'm just saying.
I'm toast.
It goes over your hand pistol.
Your hand pistol. And your bullet gun.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, enough making fun of Jimmy.
Let's bury that one here. Continue on.
So a level 3, so you get your level 2, which is like your hood or, you know, one sort of retention device, and then the level 3 would be a lock on that retention device or a third option. So if you go back to the old days of like snaps or thumb brakes,
Oh, yeah.
you would have a thumb brake. You would have like a plastic piece on your trigger. Back behind it, you would hit with like your middle finger. So you would break the thumb release, you would activate the plastic, and then you would actually grab the gun as you did all of this, and you would twist it and come up and out.
Whoa.
And like it was very slow. And
5 minutes later.
That sounded like you were just like bop it.
Yeah.
Like push it, twist it, spin it, draw it.
it was horrible, man.
Do. Sorry.
The,
Did it again.
Or they're like draw, and then the thing from SpongeBob. 5 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets the gun out.
Oh my goodness.
So it was just a
Can you
real.
imagine
It was
a cop in a SpongeBob uniform?
Not gonna go
That'd be
there.
hilarious.
I've seen SpongeBob in a cop
Yeah?
uniform, but not the other way around.
Right. It'd be interesting to see. So yeah, that's the 3 levels of
Okay.
retention for holsters. You know, modern day holsters seem to have a hood and some sort of activation to where the hood can't be, you know, activated. Tell you an interesting story. Just when in the evolution of law enforcement holsters, you actually in prison, you would have guys that would train they would, you know, they had nothing in their. I mean, these were lifetime bad guys, right? And they would actually train on how to reach in, activate the hood, and lift the gun up. Like
The prisoners would
Yes,
train this?
They would actually practice it on each other. So they would mock up like a flip flop and all this stuff, and they would practice reaching in, and so you would
They'd
activate
make a holster out of a flip flop,
well, you know, like they would practice. I mean, whatever they had, right?
Yeah.
But they would actually train
Boat seat.
coming in and boat seat, right? So they would train on coming in and activating the hood and lifting the gun and getting it, you know, for gun grabs to kill cops.
Shoot.
So that's where that kind of comes into play. On the competition level, you don't really need anything more than a level 2.
Okay.
You know, there's no reason for it to have a level 3. I mean, nobody's trying to steal your gun, hopefully, at a match.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess it could
hopefully.
happen if you have like a really nice 2011, but it could happen. But you know, nobody's really trying to steal your match or your pistol. So you want that level. But in my opinion, I think that the way 3-gun especially has gone, like it's becoming more physical. There's more obstacles. You know, every match director is trying to do something a little bit cooler and a little bit push the envelopes a little bit. Now you have the Hard as Hell series. You know, you have those. I mean, that's like Tough Mudder. The tactical games are coming up. You know, things like that. So you really need something to keep that pistol from bouncing out other than just friction.
Okay.
You know, so our holsters, you still get a friction. The gun's going to snap down in, but we also have that second level 2 retention hood that, you know, if you hang your gun on a stump, you hang your gun on a prop, you know, your sling catches the butt of your pistol, it's not going to bounce out. You know, that's the biggest thing. Because again, the goal is not to go home for the weekend, you know, for something
very
avoidable.
true.
So, but yeah, that's
Can I gotta ask you, in my holsters that I've ever had, I have held them. I've never tried making a holster, never tried playing around with kydex or anything like that. I've sat there for like an hour in the past, just sliding my holster in and feeling that like click when it hits that, and I've tried to figure out what the heck is happening, like where at what point what is it clicking into, like what's happening? How do you make that happen? What's the process of making it to the point where a gun goes in and it like clicks in and it just stays there?
It's the flex of the plastic around the trigger guard.
Around the trigger guard.
So you want the holster, you want the plastic to embed. So if you were to actually do this on a real gun, you would you take a piece of wood and you would fill in the gap between the trigger, because if you get too much, when you put the gun in, it won't come out, right?
It won't come out.
It locks in there.
So it's like sucking in around the trigger guard a little bit.
Yeah, it pulls in to that open space. So when you make a kydex holster, what you have to do is you have to account for every place the plastic would suck in that you don't want it to. So like around the ejection port, around the trigger guard, the rails, you have to offset for all that.
Okay.
So what you want is like on a good, perfect kydex holster, you want that little bit of snap, and then you would, from our perspective, you'd want some sort of adjustability in the retention to determine how much it snaps. You want to give the end user that opportunity to, because you may be doing something different than somebody else's. You may want more retention. You may be going to go do, backflips or something, and you don't want your gun to come off.
Oh, we've seen that, haven't we?
It's happened.
So it sucks in around the trigger guard. Now, here's another thing. So and of course, it's probably like not technical terms, but sucks in around the trigger guard. Your trigger's in there, right?
Right.
How do you make a kydex holder not friggin' pull the trigger when it?
So you would build in that area, or build it up so that it doesn't suck in enough to actually activate the trigger.
Okay. Is that a little freaky at first? Like when you did your first holster, did you kind of like put it in there like, I hope this?
Yeah,
I imagine maybe unloaded it
I definitely
first.
did it unloaded. Definitely. Yeah, no, it was a little weird, and the first one I did, I put the gun in and I couldn't get it out. I mean,
oh, really?
I didn't accommodate for it. I never thought about it filling in that entire space. I mean, you could see the outline of the trigger. I mean, it was bad. So the way we do things now, fast forward from 2010, 2018, every holster we make is designed in CAD. So we custom design all of our, we'll take a exterior CAD drawing of a pistol, or we'll take a scan of a pistol. We split the pistol in half, down the middle, and then we go in and we accommodate for down to, the thousandths of filling in the trigger guards, filling in the ejection port areas.
Wow.
And then, we used to use this old foam, and you'd wrap the kydex around this gun with tape and all this different stuff. Now it's all aluminum molds, all done in CAD, designed, engineered. And I use that term loosely because I'm not an engineer. Technically, what we're doing is engineering. We're setting angles where, we can determine the pitch of the holster of how it sets on the mount. I can tell you that a 4.5 degree offset on a 2011 is going to compensate for the weight. And a 140 millimeter tube fully loaded at 9 millimeter, it's going to keep the gun straight up and down. I can tell you these different things that go into, so we've evolved.
How'd you figure that? How'd you figure all that kind of stuff out? What you just described, that sounds like, is that just where you get a gun from somebody that's like, hey, I've never seen this 2011 yet. I'm going to bring it in. We're going to try something out, tweak it a little bit here and there. Do you have, how long I guess we kind of know how long it's taken because we know, based on what you've said, it's been over the course of nearly 10 years or about 10 years or so.
So I retired from full-time law enforcement in March of 2017. I'm a reserve police officer now, but I retired from full-time to do holsters full-time. At that point, I had determined that the only way to really be successful in the kydex game was repeatability and consistency, right? So we started working with tooling companies. I started talking, with machinists. How do you do this? How do you, determining this? And that's really kind of, we started a process in 2017, and really it came to fruition in September of 2018. So we met with guys like Freddie Roos, guys that had trained out at the Tactical Performance Center out at Ken Nelson's place, Ron Avery's, I'm going to use the word doctrine. I don't know, is that right, Reuben? Like, they call it like a training curriculum doctrine. I'm not really sure what they call that.
A TPC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All your friends sound like they shred a mean guitar, by the way.
Yeah.
All their names?
They're all
Some electric, some maybe more banjo, but
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
Definitely.
a couple.
Actually, in
banjo.
all funniness, Ken Nelson really can play the guitar like
He shreds
nobody's
pretty
business.
hard,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah, he does.
Oh, sweet. Shout out to Ken.
So, and then we sat down with pro shooters, guys that had been in the game for Jay Carrillo, Dylan Easley, Mike Sexton, and then I started reaching out to USPSA Grandmasters and going, hey, what, again, my whole thing is what do you want differently that you can't get now? So we started looking at the biggest issue that we saw in competition holsters was the gun would hang in the butt or the muzzle of the gun is pointing at your leg. Like the top is all the way out.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's impossible to get a good grip that way.
Yeah, your pointer right at your femur.
Right,
Great thing to
minor
shoot.
technicality. We sell tourniquet holders, by the way.
Very good.
But
you won't need them with your
Yeah,
holster.
you don't need them
no,
with your
you don't
holsters.
need them. So I sat down with these guys, and it actually hurt us a little bit, if I'm being honest. Like, it hurt us a little bit because we slowed production greatly in the transition of everything. We slowed in 2018, that spring, summer, we slowed a lot of things down, and I just determined that, listen, if we're going to do this, we're going to put the time in, the research in to really come out with a solid product and to be able to do this. And I wanted to be able to make, 500-600 of them a day. I wanted to be able to
Holy cow, that's insane.
go to a place where you...
What? Wow. I literally just checked. Mark texted me at that exact moment. Did you say 500-700 a day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's 380 minutes in 8 hours of a day. If you run 2 shifts at... even if you take the 1 a minute out, you figure out, stuff like
Some
that.
Some people got to go do something.
It happens. So...
that is many.
But the biggest thing to me was I wanted to be able to make holster 1 to holster 100,000 the same. So Reuben gets the same, Jimmy gets the same. You get the same base plate to work from. You get consistency.
Mark would get the same if he get a gun.
Yeah, he just. I'll make him an AR pouch if he buys an AR.
If you make him like a
Mark,
a
if you're
300
listening-
Wisdom Browning A bolt pouch, then
oh my
he would
goodness,
buy it. He'd be the first customer. And
Send me the
only.
CAD renderings, all right, Mark?
And only customer.
But yeah, we sat down with all these guys, and then we started looking at what the issues were, and we started playing. So we'd go into CAD, cut a tool, put it on, load a gun up, and then take one of our pro staff or one of these guys, and Freddie Ruse was really huge in helping me figure a lot of this out. And we'd slow-mo video it. We'd break it down. We'd watch what the gun did, when his hand hit, how it flexed, where it flexed, these different things. So we developed the tooling around that, and then we developed our aluminum mount and started working with a company to manufacture that for us.
That thing's pretty cool.
Working with them. Springer Precision is who we worked with on that. Scott had a great hanger. He and I got together on the QD stuff and started working on that. And, I wanted the ability to detach it quickly, to swap it in and out. I wanted guys that were shooting USPSA and 3-gun to be able to interchange a holster without having to buy a whole new belt setup, a whole new setup.
It's pretty
and
cool,
hanger.
man.
Dude.
It's pretty cool, to see Weber now. I've shot competitively since 2009. And that's pretty cool to see Weber's kind of at least one of the go-tos, if not just the stand. That's just what people use.
It's so cool too because you see there's some backyard kydex makers and stuff like that. Just I'm a backyard stippler or whatever, and they can kind of they can kind of do it. But
Right.
it's really interesting to see. I mean, you're talking about slow motion video and things, seeing the ergonomics of the human body structure and how that interacts with it, and making it versatile for people in different. I mean, that's so cool.
Jimmy, don't short sell yourself. You're more than just an
Well, you're
amateur.
right. I don't
thinking
do it in
about
my
sending you a
back.
pistol.
I don't do it in my backyard. I do it in my garage.
Can I send you a frame to stipple?
Oh yeah.
Will you custom signature it for me?
I don't know if it'll be good, the signature part, if it'll be good, but
I think he just stuttered. I think I just threw him. I don't know.
you know what? Fine. No, let's do it.
Why is
No,
your
let's do
face
it.
all red?
Let's do it. I'll stipple. If somebody sends me a gun that they want stipple, I'll stipple it.
Those of you that are listening, don't all send them to him at once, okay?
He might not get it back. All I said was I'll stipple it. I also might keep it.
Oh, this one turned out pretty nice.
I know, right?
Anyway,
Herringbone,
Yeah, so the biggest thing we found is just adjustability and being able to set stuff and setting setting people up for success. You know, our hood that we have, when you drive it forward, your thumb is going to end up where it needs to be. You don't have to re-grip, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when you go to reach for that, you don't want to have to move your thumb then to the proper spot when you're shooting. It's just already there.
People get hung up over like spring-loaded stuff, and there's some spring-loaded hoods on the market, and they're not terrible, but people get like they're fast and like you push a button and it activates, right? And that's sexy. But if your grip sucks and you go below a stage, what good did it do you?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And especially with 2011s with the aluminum grips now. I don't know if you felt like, you know, what is it, Phoenix Trinity, you know, with like an Infinity, they make these, you know, when you lock your hand in, like your hand becomes one with the grip.
It is stuck.
Yeah, and then it leaves some of
it
it
turns
on there.
your skin into like hook and loop Velcro.
I mean, it's insane. Well, think about it. If you get a bad grip from the start and your thumb's in the wrong spot, then you can't adjust that while you're shooting, short of coming completely off of it.
Yep.
You know, so if you don't have a good grip, then you're going to shoot a really horrible stage and you're going to mess up. It's just the whole, here's the biggest thing that I will tout, and that is people get really hung up on spending money on expensive guns and expensive rifles and expensive shotguns, and they go short on their gear because they don't think it matters. But if your draw stroke isn't right and your gear doesn't retain your magazines, then those are the little things. There's a video out there of me from Texas in 2015 or 16 where I flung AR mags coming off of doing a run. I'd stuck AR mags. I wanted to go prone, so I didn't wear a belt, so I stuck them in my pockets. And the AR mag, so I turn around and I go yippee-ki-yay, you know, I play some Die Hard because I completely blow the stage because I yard sailed mags everywhere, right? And it's like there's memes out there. It's hilarious. All of that.
Oh, dude,
You're a meme?
Yeah, I'm a meme.
The internet,
I'm hot
man.
stuff, man.
We're going to find it for the page.
We will. Yeah, we will.
But you know, the thing is, like, you can have the best equipment, but if you don't retain it and it's not carried right, and you lose your mags, like, there's nothing worse than going to do a reload and not having something that you need. You know?
It's very similar. We've talked a lot about hunting on this, and actually now we're transitioning kind of that shooting season again. But you know, you go out there with like a lot of stuff and a crap pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, your life sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not prepared, and the biggest thing is like you're blowing money. You know, you're blowing money. I mean, Rube, you've shot 3-gun since 2009 or competitive shooting. If you lose a magazine and blow a stage and you're a top competitor, how many positions do you think that blows you on a finish? That takes you out of the running, out of the guns.
I've had that happen at matches, and it's at least 10 spots if you drop a stage and you're, you know, if you were going in it to be like a top 5 competitor and you have a stage DQ because of something, or you just lose all the points on a stage, you're gonna drop back at least 10 spots.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, some of these matches are now giving money, you know, or you know, you're getting a gun, whatever it may be, like
whatever.
You know,
it's like if you drive off Rainbow Road one time in 200cc on Mario Kart, like you're done.
You're
Just
done.
restart. You're not gonna climb back up to first place.
Oh my goodness. My wife and I have some serious Mario Kart wars on the Wii.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Weber Tactical, setting people up for success. I like it.
Trying to.
Setting them up for success. I like that too.
Yep.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
this has been super cool. I actually had no idea that this much went into kydex holsters, much less Weber Tactical. So that's pretty sweet. But what do you say? So since we're here, like we mentioned before, since we're here at SHOT Show, we know we gotta try and make some meetings and whatnot. But Adam, let's jump into what we call last calls. Since you're a new guest on the podcast, basically what we do is it's final thoughts. Could be very mildly related or super related, or you know what? If it's unrelated, just go for it.
Or Jimmy could just talk about my keto diet, whatever.
Keto.
I haven't talked about. The last time you were on the podcast, I forgot to mention it. Check out keto. Rube's on
Keto
it.
is life.
You on keto?
I am.
Not this
I'm
week.
outnumbered.
Oh, okay.
Not this week.
Rube, how are you doing in keto when we're in Vegas here, though?
A little rough in Vegas.
Yeah, that doesn't.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
The steak and potatoes
my
is
wife
what
doesn't
gets me in
listen to
Vegas.
My last call. I do want to shout this out though. So this is super cool. I think one of the most interesting things you talked about, Adam, was the fact that you're not. Would you get like a degree in, or you know, you're not an engineer. That's what you're saying.
I'm not. No, I have a
Right.
church ministries degree.
So
Of all
this
things.
guy is not an engineer, He just saw something that needed to be done, saw a gap in the market, and he just started doing it, right?
Yep.
Boat seats. And it's like,
Just blazing his own trail.
That didn't work. Blazing his own trail. And the whole concept is super cool. And now at this point, you guys have Weber Tactical. You're employing other people as well. You're going out and really now you've gone from just doing stuff in your basement to now having slow-mo cameras and really getting into the physics of making holsters and all that, and making them with CNC and computer programming. And you didn't need to go and get a degree in that.
No.
You just figured it out. So that's super cool. I think that people should, it's one of those things. If you've got something out there that you want to go do, I mean, quit making excuses like I don't have a degree in it or it's too hard. It's like, dude, you can do it.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a
Be
way.
hungry.
Yeah.
Be hungry.
So there's my last call. Rube?
Oh, man. My last call, Jim, you definitely touched on a lot of it. Just if you got something you're passionate about, get after it and don't necessarily think that you have to do it all on your own. I know that Adam had a lot of input from people, law enforcement officers, competitive shooters. If you're passionate about something in the hunting industry, talk to other hunters about it. I mean, I think, here at Vortex, at the Vortex Nation podcast and at Vortex, we love input from people, and that's honestly where a lot of our products come from, is customer suggestions. So don't be afraid to let your community around you really help you out, and I think it makes you.
We recorded just prior to this, before heading out to this show, we recorded a podcast with my brother Joe about kind of some of the history of Vortex and some of the big hits and misses with products, and it's like, dude, you're gonna miss. I mean, you look back and it's like, we used to sell a freaking opera glass,
Right.
Like, what
got
the
one of
heck?
those, though.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. No, they're not. But it's stuff like that happens. And sometimes you're ahead of your time. Crossbow scope, cough. But sometimes you strike it just right. I don't know. Anyway.
Sometimes you get lucky and you find an XBR in the bargain cave.
That's the truth. If you find that, if you find a crossbow scope in the bargain cave at Cabela's, you get that. Anyway.
What you got, Adam?
So my last call would be this. If you're out there, use what you have to get started. Like in competitive shooting, there's a lot of gear that's involved. But I'll even take it further, like CCW. People get really hung up on, what gun to use or what brand. Find something that you can use and shoot proficiently and use it and better yourself. It goes along with what you said. Be hungry. I think too many times people it becomes an excuse for people not to do something because they don't feel like they have the money. They don't feel like they have, you can dry fire. You don't have to have bullets to train. Get out and get after it. Talk to people. Reach out to the pro staff shooters. They're approachable. Go after it. And if shooting is your passion, then make it happen. And have fun. The biggest thing that I can stress to people is, it's an industry, it's fun, but have fun. Have fun with your buddies. Get a van, rent a van, and drive across the country to a match. Drive through the night. Eat out of a gas station. make those memories. Live life. Have fun.
I like it.
That's got to be one of our top. Like, kind of went into like a Herb Brooks-esque.
Look, if you're driving, listening to this right now in your car, and you don't just feel like driving across the country now all of a sudden.
Yeah. If you feel super tired,
Go check out
over.
Go check out Chain Smoking Bobby Davis. Is that what his name was?
Billy Douglas. Chain Smoking Billy Douglas.
Chain Smoking. Go check out Chain Smoking Billy Douglas's new album, Guitar Sounds from the Truck, at 2 a.m. in Denny's.
No, man, his album was called Dirt Road Anthem.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. And to the internet, if we've offended you in any way, we're not sorry. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it. Happy hunting and shooting out there, and we'll catch you next time. All right. That'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. Leave us a review or comment down below. We want to hear what you have to say about the show, maybe what you like, maybe what you didn't like, so that way we can make these podcasts as good as they can be. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'll be posting about each episode released, so that way you can go back find these things. Maybe grab a little nugget of information that you could take with you to the range, out in the field, or maybe to the kitchen if we're talking about some good food. So, again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.